On the other side of the river, that's the convention center. Those are known fondly around here as the twin syringes or the vacuum cleaners. Little imagination. Going over the steel bridge, it says a railroad on the underside. Over on the left side, there's a ship taking on grain. Those are some grain elevators over there. They hold wheat. And once they load that, they'll be off for Asia. The Moda Center over on the left, that's where they play professional basketball and also large musical events. Every one of those mountains is a volcano. Some are extinct, some are just dormant. In other words, they would just be sleeping. I'm sure you've all heard of Mount St. Helens. That had its large eruption almost exactly 37 years ago. Airport. And it has a westerly route out the west side of town, out to Beaverton and Hillsdale. That's another 15 miles out. Now you also may have noticed that in the city, we also have some streetcars. Those are inner city only, inner west side and inner east side. And on the other side of the light rail system on our left is the main line of the Union Pacific Railroad. A little bit out of sight, but a lot of trains run on that. This is a main transportation way east and west. Any jails or hospitals?
Thank you.
Forest on it. That's called Rocky Butte, and that is an extinct volcano. Volcanoes do come in all sizes. This is a small one. It's only about 600 to 700 feet high, and there are about 9 others on the west side, all about the same size, all extinct. There are homes on these, so there's no volcano insurance, so they are sure that this is an extinct volcano. We have to go back almost about 30 million years ago, give or take a few. What happened was large volcanic flows out of eastern Oregon, and not from volcanoes, but from large fissures in the ground, large cracks. This flowed like a molasses for thousands of square miles, and there were more than one flow through these millions of years. We're up to about 14 of these big lava flows. Some even reached the ocean. Some were short, some were long, some were thick, some were thin. If you took a cross-section, it would look like a layer cake. Except this would be one that you might have dropped on the floor. There's a lot of faulting and defolding of this. So not everything is exactly level. But it does look like a layer cake, for the most part. So things were kind of quiet after that. Then came the Cascade Mountain Range. More lava, more ash and cinders laying over the lava flows that had already happened. So lots of volcanic activity. And we have a lot of other small volcanoes in the area that we'll be going to also. So this had a long history of the catastrophic geological happenings. But what we're most concerned with is what happened in the last ice ages, 9 to 15,000 years ago. One of the big forks of the Columbia River, the Clark Fork, way up in Montana, was actually blocked by glaciers. It had formed a huge lake called Lake Missoula. This is over 3,000 square miles in its area and thousands of feet deep. But finally ate its way through the ice, and it burst out in a huge wave of water, 300 to 1,000 feet high, depending on the width of the area that it flowed through. It roared down through eastern Washington, ripping out rock, soil, everything in its way. The rocks that he was plucking up, the size of automobiles, because in that volume of water, they were like grains of sand. So that roared down, hit the upper valley of the gorge, which wasn't a gorge yet, but it started to rip out more rock. When it was going through there, it was over 700, 800 feet high. Hard to believe, but it did happen. But what happened was that the ice would reform. The lake would reform, the process would repeat itself. Once again, up to about 14 times. Crazy geology. But that's what shaped the gorge. Now you may ask for evidence of that, and I'll say that in just a moment. If you look over to the left, all the hills that we see over on the left-hand side, that's the state of Washington. We are separated from them by the Columbia River. And also by the fact that they have a sales tax and we don't. So as for evidence of these floods, you can look back at Rocky Butte, that extinct volcano. If you went up on the summit, you would find round rocks the size of marbles or a small fist. And the interesting thing about those, they are made out of quartz, and we have no quartz within 400 miles of here. So those were brought in by those floods and deposited on those summits. If you wanted more evidence, I could run you 80 miles east of here. I could show you some watermarks up in the hillsides, about 850 feet high. For more proof, I could fly you in a small airplane over some parts of eastern Washington, and you look down and see ripples on the ground like you'd see in the bottom of a stream bed, except that these ripples are 150 feet high or more. More evidence of those big floods. Now what those floods have created up here was not only the gorge, but these waterfalls. Usually waterfalls such as these are formed by glaciers. But in this case, there was such a volume of water, they acted exactly like a glacier. Almost exactly right in front of us is another volcano. It's a shield volcano. It's like a shield that lays on the ground. So it has that shape. It's called Larch Mountain. It's about 4,000 feet high. And we probably won't see it because it is a low ceiling up ahead. But what that acts like, it's a huge area. It acts like a big reservoir of water, a big sponge. As I said, up in the mountains up here, it gets over 85 inches of rain, plus a lot of snow. So that is let out very slowly all year long. Obviously a little heavier in the springtime. But that's the origin of these waterfalls I will be showing you. And these are all year waterfalls, not seasonal. We will see some seasonal waterfalls, but the ones I'll show you are all year. They are essentially flowing pretty heavily right now. In August they are much less, but they still flow. They never stop. These have big watersheds. They go way back up in the mountains. Mount Hood would be about 1 o'clock from here, but it is snowing up there. That's a very low ceiling right now. We will not have a view of that, nor will we have a view of St. Helens, which would be off on our left. That's been there for over 100 years, and still making paper. Here we have a train right alongside of us. This is on its way down from Seattle, on its way east. So we are separated from the Columbia River, which has its origins 1,300 miles east of us, up in the British Columbia Rocky Mountains. It actually flows up north for a ways, makes a bend, comes back down south, right down through eastern Washington, and forms the border between Oregon and Washington for 300 miles out to the ocean. And it is the second largest river in the United States, behind the Mississippi-Missouri system. So it is a pretty significant river. The spring runoff, it's running pretty high right now. And we've had a lot of rain. We've had a very rainy spring. As I say, we usually average about 38 inches. We already have over 47 inches of rain. And the rain year is just over half done. So there's more ahead. Of the smaller suburbs, Wood Village, Fairview, Troutdale's ahead. Once we are all past this, we will be leaving civilization for just a little while. The Dalles. That's a city that is about 70 miles east of us. That's a French term for flagstone, which is a lot of rock that resembles that. You can use it as a flagstone.
Kind of a resort kind of area?
No, it's a city. Now this is the end of civilization right here. No more fast foods. Oh, I forgot about the outlet stores. Sorry. Missed the exit. So you know where it is. Now just up ahead on Alite Bridge, we will be crossing the Sandy River. Sandy River has its origins on the western slopes of Mount Hood. That's about 63 miles upriver. It's flowing pretty heavy right now due to the rain and snowmelt. And it's still snowing up on Mount Hood. That water's pretty cold. So that's the end of the housing and all that for a while. We have entered the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. This is on the Oregon side and on the Washington side. When this was first proposed, it was very controversial, mainly because there's more private land on the Washington side, more state and federal land on the Oregon side. But things were worked out. If you had an existing home outside of an urban area on either side of the river, you were grandfathered in. You can sell it, you can add on according to local zoning laws. The big sticking point was new housing outside of urban areas. In other words, it had to be out of sight. It was very controversial. There's a fellow over in Washington, he challenged that. He put a house on a bluff overlooking Multnomah Falls. He had a wonderful view of things, but everybody could see his house. The point being that if he could do it, somebody else could do it, and then somebody else. All of a sudden you'd have housing projects all over the Washington side, and thus negating a scenic area. So he had to plant trees in front of his house so he'd be out of sight. Now he still had a view. He just wanted to make a point, which he did. But this was signed into law back in 1985 by Ronald Reagan. And back then that was a gold stamp. And ever since then, there's been very, very few issues, and they've all been settled very amicably. So I hope you agree, once you see this area, that it is a good thing that we saved this. This is not the Grand Canyon, but what is? There's only one of those, except for Copper Canyon down in like Mexico. And here's the river, the Columbia River. This is the big one. The Willamette flows into the Columbia River in about 7 miles from the center of the city. And everything runs out into the ocean in 100 miles. By the riverside, most of those are the cottonwoods. And if you don't know what those are, every spring those will emit a fiber, much like cotton. It floats in the air like snow. Not good for asthmatics. And as for any sort of a commercial use, it has none. The only really use of that is to line the nests of birds. And as for the fir trees in the area, you see a lot of small ones on the left, and these are small. Much larger ones on the right-hand side, up in the hills. And those are Douglas firs, for the most part. That is our money tree here. That's where we get almost all of our lumber from. That's all used for housing. That's shipped all over the United States, and raw logs are shipped over to Asia, where they do the value added over there. These ridges will go up to over 4,000 feet. Now remembering that the waterfalls all come from Larch Mountain, which is over 4,000 feet. And that, as I say, shaped like a shield. And that's three-dimensional. So it has a huge area, holds a lot of water, a lot of snow, letting it out all year long. A huge, huge watershed. Looks like a rooster. If you removed all of the vegetation, it would look like a rooster. Straight ahead of us, up on the bluff, there is a structure up there. That is the Vista house on Crown Point. And we will be visiting that at the end of our journey. Flow from the high water. This usually has lots of the beavers in it. That's nature's little engineer. That's also the Oregon state animal. But they inhabit a lot of this area. They have lots of food. They love the cottonwoods and willows. They can't climb trees, so they will girdle them, thus felling them, and what they want is the upper, very tender branches. That's what they feed on. There's Rooster Rock right on our left. That's the head. You can see some of the body. It sort of looks like a rooster. Off on the right, there's a waterfall off of that wall over there. Now that flows right down on rock. And when we get heavy freezes up here, that waterfall will actually freeze, and people ice climb that. And they'll go right up that wall on the waterfall when it's frozen. A little risky, not on my list, but park. That's Rooster Rock State Park. There's a big boat launch out there, and some people windsurf off there when we get big winds. It looks like it's done. As for animals around here, we have all the small animals like coyotes, skunks, raccoons, otters, all the small critters. As for larger animals, deer, elk, black bear, and cougar. As for black bear, I've only seen 6 of those in the last 5 years, and only their rear ends. They don't like people. They avoid us at all costs. So the odds of seeing one of those are pretty slim. And as for cougar, even slimmer. They're very secretive. They will stalk you, but they won't jump you. We're not on their menu. We are not one of their prey. They usually go for the weak, old, and infirm. And if you know anything about the big cats, they're hardwired into knowing that they can't get hurt. If they get hurt, they can't hunt. If they can't hunt, they starve. So they're very picky about what they prey on. Smarter than the average little house cat. Up ahead, that's called Angel's Rest. That's the first big hiking area east of the city up into the gorge. That's a hike of a little bit less than 3 miles, up to about 1,600 feet. Great view from up there. So this whole area up here, besides having waterfalls, this is a huge recreational zone. There are miles and miles and miles of hiking trails. 1 mile loops, 30-mile loops, and everything in between. But the caveat is, it has to be respected, because once you're out of your car, off the highway, you are in a different zone. This is not the city. This is more of a wilderness. There was an accident up here just a couple of weeks ago. Somebody fell up there and died. So it's always a word to the wise. Off on the right, there's a little shack over there. It's a post office. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So if you look off to the left now, look off to the left through the trees out into the river. There is a rock out there. There's a clear shot up ahead here after this little fir tree. Look left at about 9 o'clock up here. Look out that way. There's that rock. That's called Phoca Rock. That's spelled P-H-O-C-A. That is Latin for seal. That was named by Lewis and Clark back in 1805 when they came down here on their Corps of Discovery voyage on their way to the ocean. They did see some seals up here, and we still get seals and sea lions up here. They will go all the way up from the ocean up to Bonneville Dam, which is a little further on up than we'll be going, but there's a fish ladder there that enables the salmon to move on upriver. The seals and sea lions know about that, and being smart mammals, they go up there to feed. It is controversial because they will take fish off of people's lines, and you don't mess with fishermen, as you know. Off on the other side of the railroad, off on our right-hand side, that's old Highway 30, and we'll be on that after a bit. That's the old scenic Columbia River Highway.
If people travel down that highway.
Yes, as so shall we. We're just going to zip up here on the freeway. The river, but when they put this freeway in the early 1960s, this was isolated. They do stock this with trout, and you can fish here with a license. Now there's the old highway over there. You can see some people over there. We've seen a couple of waterfalls up here. That one that we just went by, that is Mist Falls. That's an interesting waterfall in that it sits on the outside of the gorge there. And when we get high winds, that will actually blow back up vertically. There's Multnomah Falls just up ahead of us on our right-hand side. In this big slot up here. That is the big one, 630 feet high, with its upper and lower fall. We're only going to see it at 65, so get your photos now. Now we'll be coming back on the old highway. I wouldn't cheat you out of a visit there. We'll be coming back on the old highway and we'll visit that. A giant rock coming up right about now. There it is. That is known as the Beacon Rock. That was also named by Lewis and Clark. That acted like the beacon for them. Once they saw that on their way back, they knew exactly where they were. Remember that they traveled by the river, not by land. There were no roads. And what that is an old volcanic plug. That is the middle of an old volcano. Everything else around it was washed away by those big floods, leaving that hard center. As for that old highway, east of the city, was begun in 1914. That was essentially the beginning of the auto age around here. And so many people, since there weren't very many highways around, they wanted somewhere that they could go on the weekends. A bunch of selfish people, weren't they? So that was the impetus for the old highway. And it was ramrodded through by some wealthy people. The first 45 miles were finished by the end of 1916. And it's a windy road, it's a narrow road, but before this freeway was in, that also had log trucks and semis on it. Knowing that back in, even up until the early 50s, most of the big trucks had smaller boxes and smaller tractors. Once in a while, you will see a truck these days will end up on that highway, and much to their, well, it's terrible. It's narrow and windy, and they are in a big mess. It's very stressful for them. They're in the wrong place. They usually find that by the GPS. So once again, you cannot always trust GPS. And if you look up on these, it's like up in the hills, you can see layers of lava up in here. All from these old volcanic flows. Many of these are over 1,000 feet high. Remembering that after those first big lava flows, there were more eruptions in the area. More of the lava was already set down on the older flows. So many of these lava flows are way up around 3,000 or 4,000 feet. So now we can slow down a little bit now. And the fir trees that we will see here are a little bit larger. These are anywhere from 40 to 170 years old. This area was logged heavily 150 years ago, so we won't see any old growth trees. And when I say old growth, those are ones that are over 8 feet thick. Those were logged at the first. Those are very desirable. Good grains, few knots. We do have about 5% of our old growth left. Those are in isolated areas down south in the Cascade Range and down in the Coast Range, down by the ocean. you'll see lots of trees, lots of green, lots of rain means lots of green. And just about every shade you can imagine. The campground up on our left, that's the only one right in this area, because there is not a lot of level land. So that was one of the only places where they could establish that. Now our first waterfall up ahead is Horsetail Falls. It's named thusly because, well, it looks like the tail of a horse. If we walked up a trail 1/2 a mile from there, there's another waterfall called Ponytail Falls. The interesting thing about that one is you walk underneath and look out through the water. But we won't be doing any long hikes or anything. We'll just have a couple of short walks for the most part. No death marches. This is all about enjoyment. See there's a lot of high water up on our right. That's from the high water from the river has overflowed into these marshes. Steep slopes on our left. It goes right uphill. So most of the hiking up here is reachable going uphill. And then conversely, you have to come back down, and that's what's hard on the knees. So you always want to go slow when you come back down. Now these wires that we have just on the right side of the road, that's for the railroad. If a tree falls or there's a rock slide, it'll hit those, it'll send a signal, they'll send a crew out to see what's going on. There's Horsetail Falls up ahead.
Oh, cool.
And it's not that kind of crowded today. So we can sort of be thankful that it is a rainy day rather than a warm day. If it was warm, this would resemble an anthill. And up at Multnomah Falls, it can even be worse. You want to see an anthill on a summer weekend, that's the place. Trees in the area. If people are too quick for me.
Sorry.
Zip, alder tree, big leaf, the maple tree. And I can also say that if anybody wants any photographic help, just ask me and I'll be glad to help you out. This waterfall right now is flowing at about a little under 7/8 of what it was about 6 weeks ago when we had a lot of rain, but still pretty heavy right now. People do swim here in the summer, cold water. They are usually under 18 years old. Water's cold and dangerous to be getting in there. That's the trail up there. As you can see, it's rocky, has a lot of roots, going 1/2 mile up, but that will take time. We won't be doing that. That goes up to another waterfall. And then that makes a loop. So, let's go over to the waterfall. I can help you out right here. You ran away from it. found a lot of those in the woods that were always finding that gap there.
Basalt, B-A-S-A-L-T. These are these old lava flows from millions of years old. And these all of these lava flows have been exposed by those floods. When they blew through here, they flew through at maybe 1,700 feet high or more. This is not something that was just a little flash flood. Yeah. These were major floods that the world probably the world.
Pick up that is when the like water is up to your knees. Right now it'd be up to your chest and very cold. And you do have to wear water shoes because one way or the other, at any time of the year, you will get wet. Now right alongside that is a tunnel where the old highway used to go through, but they had a lot of rock fall about 80 years ago, so they sealed it up and moved the railroad over, moved the old highway over, and it remained that way until about 7 years ago when there was a little bit of a history deal, and they said, well, let's open it up and redo it. So they opened it up, they removed all the rock, re-timbered it, and now you can walk through it now. We're just going to drive by slowly though. We have lots ahead of us and we only have so much time. So, and one nice thing about the rain, it has certainly kept the traffic at a low point. If it was a sunny day, this place would be mobbed. There would be hundreds of people right here, for instance. So as you can see up ahead, there's the tunnel. That's where the old highway used to go through. It was one of those ones that whoever was there first had the right of way if you're coming from the opposite directions. It wasn't very wide. So this was a slow spot. Remembering that this was the main highway up until the 1960s.
Can you walk through it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can walk through it. So I'm going to slow down up here so you can look up the gorge. It's on our left. There's a car behind me, but they should see it too. Why speed through this? So there's the creek right there, and you can look right up through there. There's a log jam up there that you have to surmount first. However, right now it is shut down because they have had some accidents up there. It's very high water. That could be up over your head right now. And somebody slipped on that log jam and I broke their arm just about 3 days ago. 4 years ago, somebody was up in that log jam, slipped, hit their head, and drowned in the creek. So just 100 yards away from the highway. So I always have to emphasize that if you do hike in this area, you've got to be very respectful of where you go. When you are on the trails up here, if you want to see something, you stop and look rather than walk and look. If you walk, you're gonna fall down. Because you've got to keep your eyes on the trails. They're very rocky and very a lot of roots. We do have accidents up here every year. Last year there were 5 fatalities. People falling or just no experience. This is not the city. So you can see that this is a narrow highway, winding, not much of a shoulder. In fact, for the most part, there's no shoulder. So you do want to stay on the highway here. Very lush. You see all these ferns along here. Most of these ferns that we see along here are sword ferns. Kind of look like a sword. And this is a scenic highway, not a speedway. That's why we have a freeway now. Now you see a lot of rocks on the right-hand side of the road. Those are just to keep us on the highway. Underneath are beautiful rock walls. And those were made by rock masons from Italy back in 1915. There was nobody here who had that expertise, so we actually brought them over from Italy. And many of them actually stayed here. They sent for their families. The descendants have lived here ever since. But they did beautiful work, and I'll show you some examples later on. Now we'll see some side streams, some like little small side streams, some little waterfalls by the end of the month. Those will most likely be just about dry. They have very short watersheds, so they require rainfall immediately. There's a little bit of snow left from last winter.
Did you see that? It's just a bucket full.
Just a little spot here and there. This is the shady side of the gorge. The sun shines over on the Lake Washington side. Gesundheit. Nice and green though, isn't it? Now we've got 3 cars right behind us. Well, this is a scenic highway. And or if you are in a hurry, you're on the wrong road. Any questions?
Are there bicycling?
Yes, you
through here?
can cycle this road. If it was a dry day, we would probably see more than a few. Now that may sound weird having bicyclists on here. There doesn't seem like there's a lot of room, but this is a slow highway, and it's usually figured out by everybody that what's the hurry. There's somebody walking on the road with dogs. That's not always the smartest, but at least she hopped off the road there. Here's one of my favorite signs up here, road narrows. As if it already isn't narrow enough, it gets a little bit more narrow. In fact, 9 weeks ago there was your trailer headed west and a U-Haul truck coming east, and they got right up ahead. They got stuck for over 1 hour till they were able to separate themselves. Meanwhile, there was a line of automobiles 1 mile on either side. That was on a Sunday. You can imagine that how everybody was. But what do you do? Not much. So this is the inner lot up here, and there's only one way in this, and so when it's full, people wait, and that also makes a big line of cars. Now here's somebody here who's in a bad place. He's in the road, and if the sheriff shows up, that's $160. Bang, just like that. That's going to ruin your day. And if they don't show up in a little while, they could have the car towed. Not worth the effort. I mean, if you have a nice car, why park it on the highway? Doesn't make a lot of sense. But this is not a lodge like you can sleep, but it does have a restaurant. And here's our place up on the left here. I'll just go single file through here.
Eric Nielsen's folks.
Yeah, we'll get over here for just a moment. I can orient everybody. We'll get in a group over here. I'll get you all oriented, and I'll set you free. You have to listen to me for a few minutes. Okay, so what we have here, the restrooms are right on the right. The gift shop, watch out, there is a vacuum cleaner that will suck up $20 bills right out of your wallets. You have to watch out for that. Real good information center, a snack bar. And the way to the waterfall is off to the left. There is a lower viewing area there. From there you can see that there's a bridge up above. You can go up to the bridge. That's 1/4 of a mile from here. Zigzags up. But the trail is a good one, but it does have a few holes, a few cracks. So if you do go up there, watch where you walk. Don't walk and look. That's where you're going to step into a hole. Look where you're going. if you want to see something, stop and look. So, the top of the waterfalls, that is like reachable in 1 mile from here. Obviously, that's about 30 or 40 minutes each way. We aren't going to be doing that at all. But from there, you can go 7 miles up to the top of Larch Mountain, or you can go east 30 miles, or back west another 15 miles. And there's more loops up in there too. So it is about 3:15, maybe just a little bit after. Why don't we get back down here at about no later than about 3:55, because we have a lot ahead of us. So we want to be prompt. I want to get you back at least by 9 o'clock. No, we'll be back about 5:30, 6 o'clock if everything works out okay. So just enjoy yourselves and be safe, and I'll meet you right back down here. Okay? Enjoy.
Let's go over this bridge. Let's do it.
Suninaye. Suninaye. Amy, I am so proud of her. Oh, there we go.
trailers today, hopefully.
Wait, did you do the? I couldn't. I got it. My brother did though. My brother.
That'd be tricky to drive a tour bus through this, huh?
They do it, but I'll tell you, I wouldn't do that to save my life.
Yeah, really.
That's one thing I wouldn't do. That's very stressful. When it falls up ahead here, I'll just kind of slip off for a minute so you can see it, and it is obviously on our left-hand side. But this is unlike the other waterfalls we will see. This has a drop and then some cataracts, and then another drop and some more cataracts. Sort of like rapids. I'm going to stop right here for a second. I should remove some of those the trees. I'm going to pull forward just a little bit more. Might get a better view area. There we go. Now there's a trail up to like a little bridge there. From there you can head over to Multnomah Falls or go west or go further up in the hills south, and there's some more loopage up in there. There's so many options up here. It just goes on and on and on. You can spend months and months up in this area. There's so much up here to see. And just remember that we are only seeing the waterfalls that are low down. There are scores of more waterfalls up in the hills. These are big watersheds, and there are waterfalls all the way up in the hills. Many of them are inaccessible, and they don't even have names, but they are there. Now these white flowers right on the side, right here on the left with the fronds on them, those are false Solomon seals. That's a wildflower in the area. When the sun's out, you'll have a good fragrance from those, but not for today. Too wet. So off we go, winding around. See, this is a scenic highway, not for speed. There's that little spot where you can fish again right off here. They actually stock that with trout.
Yeah, she's the one who plants it. Once she plants it, because I'm not a planter, I can't get planting. So
How many trains a day will come through here?
Up to about 30 of them.
Wow,
This is
really busy.
busy corridor.
Yeah, it
yes.
is.
Now these blue flowers along the right-hand side here, these are larkspur. These bluish flowers are larkspur. Now right up ahead of us, you see that there's a viaduct up ahead. That's on the Washington side. That's the Washington Highway. It is not the same kind of a highway as we have here. It is a 2-lane, but it is a 60-mile-an-hour road. Now right up ahead here on the left-hand side, a few weeks ago there was a landslide here. You see all of these rocks. Just look up this slope, and you see large rocks all the way up through there. That blew right across the road, down on to the railroad tracks. They had to shut this down for about a half a week. A lot of rain means saturation, and when that happens you get a lot of weight, and that's when gravity will take over. Bridal Veil. It's named after Latourell Falls, which is a little further on. And there's only about 14 homes here, but they have their own post office. I think I pointed that out on the way up. It's very small, but you may ask, how do they rate a post office for such a small little community? Well, this is where future brides come to mail their invitations because they'll get the Bridal Veil postmark. So it's a regional tradition. So if they ever try to actually shut this office up here, it'll probably raise the ire of past, present, and future wives. It's only the size of a closet anyway, so it's not a big operation.
Is it staffed?
By one person.
I bet.
And there's only room for one person at a time. Now remember that this was the main highway at one time, so there actually were some services on here, but when they put the freeway in, there were really no services left. there just wasn't enough of a traffic flow as there is now, however. This has been found. In the last about 5 years, this area has been found by the internet, by Facebook, by whatever. And on during the summer, once the school is out, this area is jammed June, July, and August. Packed every day, not just on the weekends, but weekends are always worse. In fact, I do not suggest coming up here on a summer weekend because it will be extremely slow and very frustrating. Thousands will use this. If you look off on the right, you'll see the river again, and you can see Foca Rock out there again, right about now. There it is. And there's that viaduct over there. Now, there are waterfalls on the Washington side also, but they are a little bit more inaccessible. You have to drive a little bit further off or walk a little bit further. A little bit more of a challenge over there.
You said that ridge of the mountain, that's the highway, right?
Yes.
Washington.
That's a viaduct up there. That's the Washington Highway. So here's the little hamlet of Bridal Veil. You can almost hold your breath here. One of the happy residences there. He's probably saying, when is this traffic ever going to leave this little... When are they going to go away? Well, they're stuck, I'm afraid. Now, just right up ahead here, there is a junction back to the freeway going west, or there is an off-ramp heading east. Now, right up here also is Angel's Rest. This is the first big hiking area east of the city in the gorge. And as you can see, there's not a big crowd here, but it is late in the day. If we were up here about 11 o'clock, there would be about twice as many cars. On a sunny weekend, there are hundreds of cars up here. So if you want to hike up here on a weekend, good luck. You want to be up here about 5 a.m. The best time to actually hike up here in the summer is in the middle of the week. Come up around 6 a.m. or about 4 in the afternoon. Otherwise, you will not have any solitude. There's just way too many people. And I can't blame them. It's a beautiful spot. So off we go. We'll move along through here. And we will see Latourell Falls up ahead. Not as clearly as a few weeks ago when there are no leaves, but I will let you know when you can see it. It will be almost hidden now by all of the recent growth. But it'll be off on our right-hand side, just after this little fence ahead here. I'll tell you when to look right and down. Right about now, start looking right and to the downward side. And there it is, a big white fall down there. That's a double fall. There's one just like it right underneath it. I wish we could visit that, but that's about an extra half an hour and a little bit more of a longer walk and a lot more mud. Now just up ahead on the left-hand side is a bed and breakfast. Many years ago, this was a roadhouse where you could stop for refreshment, both solid and liquid. There used to be many of these on this old highway, but once they put the freeway in, that was sort of the end of them. Many of them were dismantled or they caught fire, bad wiring, whatever. But that one's still there. Big trees through here. These are well over 100 years old. Now land up in the area. So this is claimed very, very early. These people here raise goats. If you look off in the field, you may see some. There they are, doing what they do best, eating grass. They have a nice place down there, except in the winter it is always shady there for almost about 6 months. They can have some sunshine about 100, maybe like 100 feet away, but big difference. mushroom rock up ahead. Kind of looks like a mushroom, but this is one lava flow laying on another lava flow here. A little bit of incongruity. Now if you look off right, way out there, you can see the Vista house. Way out on the bluff out there. That's where we'll be going in a little while. We have another waterfall ahead. And there's another waterfall right up here. This is Shepherd's Dell right here. It's a beautiful little waterfall, but we're going to drive on through. We have to keep going, unfortunately. But it's just off and down here on the left. Beautiful little waterfall. So many here. I wish we had all day. But we do have a good waterfall up ahead that we will be going on a short walk to. It's called Latourell Falls. It's one of my favorites. And we'll walk right down to the plunge pool. Just a short walk of about 150 yards. One little slight rise on it. Very slight. Once again, we're in no hurry. This is not a death march. It's all about enjoyment. We'll see some little seasonal waterfalls along here, some seasonal streams, remembering that those are from very short watersheds. Left here, remembering these are seasonal. A few more homes along here. Here's some waterfalls in here. These will be dry in about 3, maybe 4 weeks at the most, unless we have more rain. Which I hope that it will slack off, I hope. There's a little seasonal stream on the left. That'll be dry soon. So our next waterfall is just up ahead, called Latourell. It's a French name. There was a fellow who actually owned this, but once the state put the highway in, he said, well, I'm going to give the state this waterfall. Mighty magnanimous of him. And not much of a crowd, so this is pleasant. Look before you leap. He's going to go back in. Might makes right again. Up to the top of the waterfall, then in 1 mile upstream there's another waterfall, and it makes a 3-mile loop that comes underneath the bridge right back up to the stairway. But we're just going to...
I look at the movies, but it still made my heart stop watching that scene just now.
Okie doke. Up. We get more snapshots up there. Let's all go in a group now. Watch your footing. There's a few stairs, but there's no hurry. And we'll have a few stops on the way. Got to point out a few things. We'll stop here for just a moment. Right down here. Kind of form right here. Yep. I'll use this rock. So what we have right alongside of us, this is the cottonwood tree, this large tree right here. That is the like one that was not very long from now that will emit that fiber, just like the cotton. It'll float like snow, and only good for lighting the nests of birds. As for firewood, never burn cottonwood. It has an evil smell. Very brittle wood too. Now right alongside of it, with the like whitish, the bark is a wild cherry tree that does have fruit, but it's only ends up as the bird food. They're always there first. We'll go on down. here for just a second. We'll try to form over on the inside here. We'll wait till everybody's down. This is the only hill, so from here on it's fairly level. So we have some flowers over here, right on our side here. The purplish flowers, or, well, the bleeding hearts. These are liberal bleeding hearts. Well, and this is and this little guy here is the ball water leaf. That little plant. And these are just not done, but these were essentially known as like fringe cups. These little flowers here. They're on their way out now, though. Everything has a season. Once it's over, that's it. Now here's some nicer ones here. These are the fringe cups. Just right down here, you can see the little fringe on them. And then these plants here, right here, these are, they have fairy bells. They have nice little white flowers that are already gone, but they do have little fruits. These little fruits right here, these will end up larger and they will be a nice shiny orange. They'll be about the size of a pea, but non-edible. Anything shiny red, shiny orange, shiny black or white, never eat. Those are not good. There are a lot of edible fruits in the area, but not right now. And if you don't know what they are, never eat something that you don't know. Just like any sort of like mushroom. Same thing with those. There's a plant right here. See this plant right here? I'm going to get right here and look at this.
Wow.
Nature's Velcro. This is called cleaver. C-L-A-V-E-R. Cleaver. Once you hand that on through, you can feel it. It is kind of rough. Nature's Velcro. Nature was way ahead of us as usual.
That's cool.
Lady ferns right here. These flowers, these will end up as thimbleberries, which are edible. They are in the shape of a thimble, and they are red, and they are edible, almost like a raspberry, but sort of bland. The Doug fir tree right here. This one's about 170, 180 years old. So when they logged this area about 150, 160 years ago, this was just a twig. They didn't even fiddle with it. But they will never log here again. This is a state park. More fringe cups right here. More fringe cups. More bleeding heart. We'll make another kind of fast little stop and just come right into here. And we'll stop right here for just a moment. We'll kind of group up. Show you some more ferns right here. We've already seen one fern. Here's some more right here. Now these large ferns right here, these are sword ferns, these large ferns. These smaller ferns like this, these are deer ferns. These guys, when it gets dry, these will actually shrivel up and look like they're dead. But if there's any rainfall, they will rejuvenate. I wish I had that quality. Now one more fern. This is my favorite fern right here, right behind you. The maidenhair ferns. Beautiful ferns. They have a very wiry, very, very slick black stem. A beautiful fern. And they're out for a while now. So this is a very wet area. Lots of ferns, lots of undergrowth. Lots of lady ferns here. So one more stop for the botany class. We will have a test later if you stay with me for tonight. So you look up this slope. What do you see up in here? This is what you see. Don't put your fingers on these. Stinging nettles. These plants right here are stinging nettles. Irritating, not fatal, but you can neutralize them by just steaming them, and you can eat them like spinach. You can put them in a soup or a tea. Very high in vitamin C. Always eat them before they flower, and some of the restaurants in the city actually serve these. But ask them to steam them first, please, or you won't enjoy them at all. Now we have a lot of invasives in here too, lots of blackberries, wonderful fruits, but they are invasives. They will smother natural growth. One more plant I'll show you. I know I'm going to bore you a little bit, but this one won't bore you. This plant right here, if you grabbed it like this, you would be screeching. There are sharp thorns on there, thousands of sharp thorns all down this thing. And they're hard thorns, short and sharp. If you look at the leaves, on the stems of the leaves, thorns. On the upper side of the leaves, thorns. On the underside, thorns. This is called the Devil's Club, and aptly named. This is nasty stuff. It can get that big. See this big plant down here? 8 to 10 feet high. So if you ever go off of the trails around here, better have some Carhartts on. Or otherwise you'll be leaving some of yourself up here while also taking back something that you don't want. No ticks in the area though. Not in this area. Too wet. So we'll go on down. Now this is nice. There's hardly anybody here. And we'll stop here for just a moment. We'll wait till everybody's here. This is one of my favorite waterfalls here, and there's hardly anybody here. Unlike Multnomah Falls, which is packed with people, not everybody comes here. People use that like one freeway exit at Angel's Rest and go right to Multnomah Falls, bypassing this. We'll all kind of gather up just a little bit so I can explain what we were seeing. Come on down here. So we have 3 levels of the lava that have been exposed by those big floods. 1, 2, and 3. That center one, that actually cooled very, very slowly, and that actually crystallized into that hexagonal form. So even nature, once again, does some amazing things. Go right ahead. You want to hold you up? We've already had enough wetness that morning.
We've missed it.
So, that's what happened right there. Now, you are most likely to ask, what is that yellow color? That is a lichen, L-I-C-H-E-N. That's a combination of an algae and fungus. It is alive. It does grow. It doesn't move anywhere. It just stays there all year long, staying the same shade all the time. A beautiful spot. We'll let these folks go, and then I'll let you go. Remember that this bridge is over 100 years old right here. It is solid. It does get some maintenance once in a while, so it is solid. Yep. Now remembering that this highway was finished end of 1916, the first 45 miles east of the city. And as such, those were older cars back then, and they were not used to be going up a 10% grade. So they engineered this highway in a series of loops. It's known as the Vista Figure 8 loop. This goes uphill in a series of loops, making it an easy ascent and an easy descent. It is rare when there is one in this area, but some of them will use that exit back at Angel's Rest to go to Multnomah Falls. And once they use that exit, they're stuck because they cannot turn around. And so they have to go all the way through those narrows and all that. And they'll never do it again. But it's usually from somebody out of state who sees a highway on his GPS and thinks, well, that'll be a nice little drive. Well, not with a big truck, nor with a big trailer, really. It's really, this is not a good road for long, wide vehicles. So you can see how this loops up the hill. Waterfall Sullivan Seal on the left there. A lot of wildflowers up in this area. They all have a sequence. Some are early, some, and they all sort of follow each other. A lot of larkspur here still. That's that big blue flower. There's some lupin here too. It's a botanist's heaven up here. So the Vista House is up ahead. That was an afterthought up here. Once this highway was finished back at the end of 1916, that's when everybody thought, wow, what a beautiful highway. But women were soon asking, well, we enjoy this a lot, but you know, we'd like to have some place where we can maybe freshen up a little bit. Then kind of scratch their heads like they usually do in situations such as that. And then they finally figured it out. Oh yeah, well, let's fix you up something. So what the better spot than your Crown Point? And that's where they put this rest stop. It's a beautiful spot, a spectacular view, and it is quite a little building. The outside is made of sandstone. It has inner limestone walls, Alaskan marble floors, and the translucent windows from Kokomo, Indiana. Now, it might be closed. I believe that they are still under winter hours, so they may not be open, but we can certainly look inside from the outside. And it is raining, so this might not be very long. A pretty good luck so far. We'll start getting some views off on the right-hand side here. We're going to be in some clouds too. This is not a fog, these are clouds. These are rain clouds. And it looks like we're going to get a pretty good little squall here. So if you want to stay inside, I can understand that too. We're going right up in the rain. So this was begun right after the highway was finished here. It was finished by the end of 1917. And beautiful work, beautiful rock work once again. There it is up there. Vista House on Crown Point, and that does look like a crown. But just the engineering job on this highway is just spectacular. How it winds around the cliffs here, giving you nice views, easy up and down. More false Sullivan seal in there. Beautiful rock walls. These are all hand-laid rock. Remember, everything on the other side of the river is Washington. Those are hay fields over there. And if this hadn't have ended up as a scenic area, that might have all been homes over there at one time. And there goes your scenic value. Well, there's nobody here. I can see why. It's raining. A little bit of wind, but I will pull over here. If anybody wants out, I will let you out. But I can understand if you don't want to get out. This is an exposed ridge, as you can see. We get big winds out of the east in the winter. They blow through here very, very strongly. Remember, those big floods, they also flowed right over this. This was underwater more than a few times. Hard to believe once and again, but these massive floods were just, biblical, you could say, I guess. They were just immense. So anyway, I was up here 4 Novembers ago. I had heard that there were going to be some big winds, and I'm a fan of wind. I like that invisible force. So I roared up here. I got out of my car. I was instantly at an angle like this. I couldn't fall down. The wind was holding me up. There was an automobile over in the front of the Vista house. There were 3 fellows in it holding anemometers out the window, measuring the wind velocity. This one guy in the rear seat was very excited. He was lurching around, gyrating, and he was yelling, 110-mile-an-hour gust. Not a sustained wind, but a gust. I mean, it was really blowing. So this automobile shows up. He roars around to the other side, opens his door, and snappo! The door is ripped right off the car. It falls on to the asphalt. It wiggles a little bit, and he's looking at it, and his head almost fell off of his shoulders. He was so stunned. I didn't ask him whether it was a rental or his own, but he had to put that door in to the back seat. He had a safari car for the rest of the day. I looked over this western wall over here, the one with the like lamps on it, and I could have opened up a haberdasher shop. There were about 40 hats that had blown off of people's heads and landed in the woods over there. So just as I was getting ready to set sail from here, so to speak, there was a fellow showed up, smartly put his car head into the wind. He got out. He walked over to the lee side of the Vista house, out of the wind, but I did know that there's a little bit of a vortex over there in high winds. And he had a hat similar to what I have on, similar to like what you have on. And sure enough, the hat left his head, but it went up vertically about 6 feet, hovered for a second, floated right back down, landed at his feet. His hands went up in joy. He uttered, "Oh, I got my hat back." He was so happy. But he made one mistake.
He didn't grab it.
He put the hat back on and it joined the rest of them out in the woods. So whenever they get a 50-mile-an-hour gust up here, followed by a second and a third, they will shut this down because it'll blow you off these steps and you can be seriously hurt. So that's when they shut it down. Not today, though. No wind, but the hour has shut us down, unfortunately. Hey, we're getting very vaguely. Now on the right-hand side, it's about 800 feet straight down here. Now this road is open all year, and in the winter when we get snow up here, they will plow this and sand it. We don't use salt up here. It's not good for the environment, nor really not that good for your car either. And sometimes we will actually use a magnesium chloride, which is a salt, and it's in liquid form. But you have to put that down when it's dry. A little bit of a slump in the road here. This will slump sometimes. You can see some wrinkles up ahead here. So they have to shut this about every 7 or 8 years so they can fix this, or the whole thing could eventually go downhill. So that's one of the like problem areas there. Now this road off on the left up here, this is the road up to Larch Mountain, up to the summit. That is still snowed in about 7 miles up, so that's shut up to that point. But we're still on the old scenic highway, Highway 30. Now the original Highway 30, after they got it all built, goes from Astoria, Oregon on the coast all the way east to Atlantic City, New Jersey. It was at one time the third longest highway in the United States. Now, much of Highway 30 east of here is under Interstate 84. Just like down in Southern California, Route 66 is in many places under Interstate 40. Same thing happened up here. There was no room for everybody. Or I should say every road. Sell and they might get a tax write-off. But most people who live up here have jobs in the city. But they do like rural life, and this is not a bad place. We aren't very far from the city. You'll see very few for sale signs ever out in this area. Very desirable spots. Just off on the right-hand side up here is a lavender farm. You can see that through this large hedge. There's your lavender farm off there. And off on the left, these people raise sheep, but they're inside today, keeping warm. Or dry, hopefully. Now, right again on the right-hand side, this is a blueberry farm, right off on the right-hand side here. Lots of varieties of blueberries, some small, some tall, short, all kinds of them. But this is a wonderful area for any kind of berry crop, whether it's blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, loganberries, gooseberries, all kinds of berries. They grow very well here. Real good volcanic soils, obviously ample rain, and we have enough sunshine. These are hay fields out here. It doesn't have a lot of services because it isn't very far from the city. So there's no sense in having a big supermarket up here. They do have a high school, but not a lot of services. It would just be a duplication. And nobody would make any money. So we're going to leave Highway 30 now. We're going to go back down to Interstate 84, and we'll be on our way back into the city. Now this is a 10% grade. If anybody here is a cyclist, this is a good workout if you come up this hill. If you go down, you want to have some good brakes. Because it does go down. Right-hand side, these are all blackberries. That's just a briar patch up in there. Wonderful fruit, but they do have nasty thorns, and you pay the price when you are after their fruit. But they are free too. They grow everywhere, so you can have free jams and jellies and lots of pies. But you never want to pick blackberries along roadsides or the railroad because they will spray, and that's not something that you want to ingest. There's lots of places off the roads where you can find whole thickets of them, free of any spray. Say?
That's for the heat.
No little heat?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So this will be our last view east on this viaduct. I don't know whether there'll be much of a view right now, but this is your last view east. There it is.